Hidden Truths Revealed: How a Janitor's Daughter Inspired a Billionaire in an Incredible Moment. Sarah's bright eyes sparkled like stars in the dusky evening light as she swept the floor of the local community center beside her dad, Frank. His worn hands worked tirelessly, a janitor and proud veteran, teaching her the values of hard work, perseverance, and honesty. They laughed, shared stories, and together they transformed the center from a quiet space into a lively oasis of possibility. Despite the struggle for every dollar, Sarah found joy in the little things: the smell of fresh paint, the laughter of children in the next room, and the feeling of doing something worthwhile. But every beautified corner felt intertwined with the weight of her family's financial burden. It was during a bustling weekend community event at her underfunded middle school that Sarah's world collided with someone else's. David, a reclusive billionaire, strolled through the crowd, an unfamiliar nostalgia engulfing him. He stood on the outskirts, observing. His past was a tangled web of struggles, yet wealth had turned his focus inward, isolating him from reality. But when David spotted Sarah, passionately sharing her dreams of studying science with a group of eager, young faces, something shifted. His heart began to swell, warm with admiration for the girl embodying strength and determination, unaware of her daily sacrifices. Then came the fateful announcement about the scholarship program. Sarah, full of hope, sat amongst her peers as the details flooded in. "The program prioritizes wealthy applicants," she echoed in disbelief. Shock rippled through her. The crushing realization felt like a storm brewing inside her chest. This wasn't just unfair, it was injustice. In that vulnerable moment, a fire ignited within her. She rushed outside, gathering friends and neighbors, their voices rising above their humble surroundings. "Equality for all," they chanted, holding signs that danced defiantly in the wind. Sarah's resolve surged as her community rallied around her, reinforcing a bond that pulsed with collective hope. David watched in awe, genuinely captivated by her courage. The crowd's energy was electric, and inside him, a battle raged. He'd been raised in a world that thrived on privilege, yet everything heightened his internal struggle. The gala invite was looming, and the people around him whispered sweet temptations. But as he gazed upon Sarah, he saw the responsibilities resting upon her shoulders, the weight of her family's struggles, and it felt wrong to ignore them. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. The time came for David to face the scholarship committee, the weight of his decision heavy on his heart. He remembered the spark in Sarah's eyes, the echoes of her rallying cries, and suddenly, everything felt clear. What if there was a scholarship named after her? He contemplated, a bold idea surging forth. Just then, an unexpected twist revealed a shared past between them, a hidden truth connecting their lives tighter than either could have imagined. As Sarah stood with her community breathlessly awaiting his answer, the air thick with tension, David realized this was more than a moment, it was the birth of an opportunity. Would he finally stand for something greater than himself? The anticipation hung in the air, igniting hope for what could come next, leaving everyone waiting to see if David would choose equality or retreat back to silence. The atmosphere was electric, filled with hope and uncertainty. Sarah's heart raced, a drumbeat of emotion intensifying as her eyes locked with David's. The vibrant signs her community held aloft, painted in bright colors, each word an embodiment of their collective dreams, fluttered in the soft evening breeze. She felt a rush, a heady mix of fear and excitement. This was the moment that could change everything. With every passing second, David stood at a crossroads, his brow furrowed. He was no longer the observer. He was the catalyst in this unfolding story. Memories washed over him, his own struggles, the nights spent hungry, yearning for opportunity. He felt connected to Sarah in a way he couldn't explain. her strength stirred something raw within him. It was time to reach beyond the walls he had built. "Ladies and gentlemen," he finally called out, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. The crowd quieted, all eyes on him. "What I've seen here today has moved me, Sarah." He gestured toward her, a spotlight illuminating her in this pivotal moment. "You remind me of the child I once was. You inspire me to be better." Gasps rippled through the crowd, a mixture of shock and hope palpable in the air. Sarah felt the warmth of encouragement surround her as David continued. "Your fight for equality speaks volumes, and I am here to support you." A hush fell, every breath drawn in anticipation. "What if we created a scholarship together, one that not only empowers students like you but levels the playing field for those who face the same struggles?" He proposed, his heart pounding with each word. As he spoke, Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief, and then a spark of determination ignited within her. "You really mean it?" she breathed, barely believing the words spilling from his mouth. The weight of his gesture hung heavy with promise and possibility. "Yes," David said, his conviction growing. "This scholarship will stand as a symbol of hope. It will honor your bravery in the face of adversity and lift others from the shadows of financial struggle. We can change lives." Fireworks lit up the sky in the distance, but this moment felt even brighter. Sarah's heart swelled with gratitude and disbelief. The cheers from her community erupted like thunder, shaking the very ground beneath them. They believed in her. Now, a billionaire believed too. David had transformed from an outsider to an ally, grounding her aspirations in reality. Suddenly, in the back of her mind, a thread of doubt flickered. "But what if it isn't enough?" she thought. "What if this doesn't solve the bigger issues?" The echoes of complacency crept in, reminding her that real change required more than promises. But before she could dwell too long, David looked straight at her, an anchor in the storm. "Together, we will make sure this scholarship not only supports education but also advocates for systemic change. Just as you've inspired this community, I want us to inspire a movement." As she took a deep breath, feeling the weight of determination wash over her, Sarah realized this was not just about her story. This could ripple out, touching lives far beyond their immediate circles. She glanced at her father, tears glistening in his eyes, a mirror of pride reflecting back at her. "Let us do it," Sarah affirmed, her voice ringing clear and strong. "Let us change the narrative." The crowd erupted once more, but amidst the celebration, different questions brewed inside her. Would their plan be strong enough? What challenges lay ahead? This was just the beginning, and in David's eyes, she saw not just commitment but the flicker of his own transformation. Unbeknownst to them, a shadow loomed at the edge of the crowd, someone observing with a calculating gaze. And in that moment, Sarah began to realize that their journey would not just challenge society, it might challenge those who thrived on the status quo. But for now, the spark had been lit. As the night wrapped around them, both David and Sarah stood on the precipice of change. The world was watching, and the question lingered: would they harness the momentum behind them or falter in the face of adversity? The night air crackled with excitement, but beneath the cheers, a storm brewed in Sarah's heart. As the fireworks painted the sky with vibrant colors, all eyes remained locked onto her and David. She felt the weight of their expectations pressing down like an anchor, as if the universe had put this moment on her shoulders, and she wasn't sure if she could bear it. "Do we have what it takes?" she whispered to herself, her mind racing through a haze of possibilities and fears. David's gaze shifted out to the crowd, and the warmth in his blue eyes told her he understood. Yet beneath his confident demeanor lay a vulnerability she could sense. As he turned back to her, his expression serious, she wondered what battles he fought in silence. "Are we really ready for this?" he asked, breaking the brief stillness after the celebrations. "This will take everything we have: time, passion, and a willingness to face those who might oppose us." Sarah nodded, her heart pounding. "We can't back down now. We've ignited something, and I won't let doubt dim that flame." He smiled at her determination, and in that moment, she felt the connection between them strengthen. It wasn't just about the scholarship, it was about forging a path together, rooted in shared trials and newfound hope. Suddenly, the joy in her heart was interrupted by a noise from the back of the gathering. A figure emerged from the shadows, a tall man dressed in a dark suit, his face set in a grim line. Sarah recognized him as Mr. Thompson, a local politician notorious for dismissing grassroots efforts. The cheers dipped as he approached, his intentions shrouded in an unsettling air. "David," he called out, voice smooth like polished stone. "$1 billion commitment, you say? How noble. But what about the strings attached? Do you think the powerful will allow this kind of disruption?" The crowd began to murmur, uncertainty weaving through the air like a thick fog. Sarah felt her stomach drop, the moment turning from celebration to confrontation. David squared his shoulders, stepping forward to meet the challenge head-on. "Change doesn't come without risk, Mr. Thompson. People are tired of promises that don't mean anything. This isn't just a financial commitment, it's a movement for equality and justice." "Well, then," Thompson smirked, "it seems you're quite the dreamer. But what happens when the system pushes back? You think your inspiration is enough?" Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. She searched for David's eyes, willing them to share her belief. This was more than just a project, it was a crusade. "David," she said, taking a step forward, "our community has been ignored for too long. Isn't this a chance to show that we stand together?" A ripple of support surged through the crowd. "Yes," they shouted, but Thompson remained unfazed, calculating his next move. "Be careful what you wish for," he warned, his eyes gleaming. "The establishment won't take kindly to your little rebellion. I've seen movements rise and fall. You might be sowing seeds for failure." As he pulled back, the throbbing tension hung heavy in the air. Sarah felt the tide of fear creep back into her mind, but she clung tightly to her resolve. How could they fight back against such opposition? Maybe we were naive, she thought, catching a glimpse of doubt in some faces. Just as quickly, she pushed it down. They had to continue the momentum, to move forward despite the shadows lurking at the edges. "David," she said, her voice steadying, "if we stand together, we can inspire a wave of change that cannot be ignored. We've got to turn this fear into action." As the crowd began to buzz again, a flicker of intention passed between David and Sarah, binding them in purpose. But even as she felt empowered by their first steps, she couldn't shake the feeling that other forces were readying for a fight. What would they come up against next? The night wore on, filled with fiery talks and passionate commitments, but the lingering doubt blurred the bright colors overhead. And as the moment stretched, Sarah realized that complacency could become their greatest enemy. David turned to her, a new determination in his eyes. "Let us meet tomorrow. We'll plot our course and figure out how to turn up the heat." As they parted, a question filled the air: would they be able to stand firm against the challenges ahead, or would the shadows pull them back into uncertainty? The battle had just begun. The morning sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden hue over the town. Sarah laced up her sneakers with a sense of purpose. The battle ahead felt daunting, but today was pivotal. She glanced at her phone, checking the time. David would be waiting for her. The community center hummed with activity as she approached. Kids laughed and played while adults chatted, but there was an undercurrent of tension, like the calm before a storm. Sarah pushed through the glass doors, inhaling the familiar scent of coffee and muffin batter. The vibrant artwork plastered on the walls reminded her of all they had campaigned for. David was already there, engrossed in a conversation with a few local leaders. He looked up, and his face lit up when he saw her. For a moment, the weight of the world lifted, but she quickly reminded herself of the fire they had to stoke together. "Hey!" he greeted, wrapping her in a quick embrace. "I'm glad you made it. We've got a lot to discuss." "Let us not waste any time," she replied, trying to mask her nerves. Thompson's words are still ringing in my ears. We need a solid plan to counter the skeptics. With a nod, David gestured for everyone to gather around. We need to convert our anger and passion into something stronger. Let us form committees, reach out to allies, and draft our mission statement. The group erupted into discussions, bouncing ideas off one another like fireflies sparking into life. Sarah felt a thrill at the collective energy, but clouds of anxiety still loomed. Just remember, she interjected during a brief lull, we can have all the plans we want, but they won't mean anything if we don't connect with the people we're trying to help. We need to remind them why we're fighting. One of the leaders, an older man named Fred, chuckled. Smart thinking, Sarah. We shouldn't forget who we're representing. Our power lies in our voices and stories. As the brainstorming session continued, Sarah noticed David's gaze drifting towards the window, lost in thought. She followed his line of sight and saw teenagers playing basketball outside, their laughter a stark contrast to the heaviness inside. Hey, she said softly, moving closer to him. Are you okay? He turned, a shadow passing over his features. Yeah, just thinking about how much they need this, how much we all need this. I know it's scary, but we've started something real, she reassured him. We just have to stay united. The moment we falter, that's when we give them the power to push us back. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. You're right. It just feels like every move we make brings us closer to a battle we're not prepared for. Sarah placed a hand on his arm. But we are prepared, David. It's more than just the two of us. We have the whole town behind us. As they broke the meeting, excitement bubbled in the air while fear tried to creep back in. That tension sat heavily on her chest. Weeks passed, and their momentum built, but every moment of joy was quickly chased by doubt and applause drowned out by whispers. They reached out to local businesses, garnered support from activists, but Mr. Thompson's words echoed hauntingly, reminding her of the walls they had yet to break down. In the midst of their efforts, Sarah stumbled upon an even deeper challenge. Her own sense of self-worth began to waver. Was she really equipped to lead this charge? Could she truly inspire the change they envisioned? That night, she sat on her bed, heart racing as if the walls were closing in. She wondered if the fight ahead was more than she could handle, if she was just a janitor's daughter playing at something bigger than herself. Suddenly, a notification pinged on her phone. It was from David. Meet me at the diner? I think we need to talk. As she glanced out of her window, the stars twinkled, but uncertainty loomed. What did David want to say? Were they still united in their fight, or had the shadows from their doubts finally crept in? The next steps were murky, and with everything they built on the line, Sarah felt her heart race in a mix of anticipation and dread. The real fight was just beginning. The diner was a hallmark of the town, small but buzzing with life. When Sarah arrived, the bell above the door jingled, and the warm aroma of freshly brewed coffee welcomed her, mixing with the chatter of patrons and the sizzling sound from the kitchen. Banners celebrating the upcoming festival festooned the walls, but instead of excitement, she felt anxious. A shadow of dread nestled deep within her gut. David sat at a booth in the corner, his hands clutched around a steaming cup of coffee. She slid into the seat opposite him, catching a glimpse of the worry etched across his face. Hey, she said, trying to inject some warmth into her voice despite her own unease. Hey. He looked up, his brow furrowed. Thanks for coming. What is going on? You seemed really serious in your message. David took a deep breath, the weight of the moment hanging heavily in the air. It's about everything we've been doing, the community center, the outreach. I've been thinking about how we're always pushing. But what if we need to pull back a little? The word struck Sarah like a bolt. Pull back? David, we can't afford to do that. We're gaining support, and there are people counting on us. I know, but maybe we're pushing too fast, he pressed, his voice tense. With Thompson stirring up doubt, I wonder if people are really behind us, or if they're just pretending to be saving face. Her heart sank. She had faced doubts before, but hearing it come from David felt like hearing it for the first time. "I refuse to believe that," she said, trying to maintain her resolve. "If they've come this far, they must believe in us. They need to believe we can change things." There was a fatalistic pause before he replied. "I want to believe that, too. It's just every time I think we've overcome a hurdle, another one appears. It's exhausting." "I get it," she murmured, looking down at the tabletop. The patterns of the vinyl started to blur as her thoughts spiraled. It was a hard road, but they owed it to all those counting on their efforts. "But it's not just us, David. Did you see those kids playing today? They'll look at what we do, want something different for their future. We can't just stop now." "I don't want to stop. I want to go forward," but his voice faltered. "But you're scared," she finished for him. "I am too. But hiding from it won't make it disappear." David's gaze softened. "I know you're right. I admire your fire, Sarah. Sometimes I wish I had your courage." She looked up, surprised. "Courage? I'm just holding on to hope. But you know what? I didn't think I could do this either. Just a few months ago, I was wondering if I had any worth beyond my background." He leaned forward, curiosity brewing in his eyes. "What changed?" Sarah felt a spark of clarity, remembering the faces of those who believed in her, who inspired her to be more than what others perceived. "I realized that we're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. We're doing this for everyone who feels voiceless. I have to lean into that. That's what I admire about you." David's voice was steady now, and she could see the walls he'd built around his insecurities beginning to crack. "Then let's charge ahead together," Sarah urged, her heart swelling with renewed determination. "Let's remind our community why we're in this fight. It's bigger than either of us." David nodded slowly, a shadow lifting from his shoulders. "Together then." As they shared a smile, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope break through the ever-present clouds of insecurity and fear. Maybe they were on the precipice of something great, despite the hills still left to climb. The challenges would come, but the strength of their bond could guide them through. Just then, the waitress arrived, interrupting their moment with steaming plates of pancakes. As syrup dripped from the fluffy stack, Sarah thought about how this might symbolize their fight's sweet outcomes ahead if they were willing to take the leap, but as they dug into their meal, a realization struck her: what if the answers they sought were hidden, unspoken, and lurking just beneath the surface of their efforts? Maybe there were truths lurking in the shadows, just waiting to be discovered. With that thought, Sarah's heart raced again. What else was waiting out there? And were they ready for whatever truth would come next? As the soft clatter of forks against plates filled the air, Sarah's mind raced. The comfort of the diner, with its rustic charm, felt like a fragile bubble ready to burst. She looked at David, who was now lost in thought, the weight of their conversation pulling him down. What if we start a town meeting?" Sarah blurted, her voice cutting through the hum. "If we invite everyone, we can remind them of why we're doing this. Hear their voices directly. It could restore faith, bring the community together." David looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "That could work. But do you really think we can get everyone to attend? With Thompson spreading doubt, people might not want to show up." "Then we need to make it about them," Sarah insisted. "Let them share their stories, show what they truly value. If we rally behind them, that might spark a new fire in us all." He nodded slowly, a cautious spark igniting within him. "You know, hearing people talk about their dreams can be much more powerful than we think. It could drown out the noise Thompson's making." The feeling of possibility washed over them like warmth from the sun cutting through clouds. As they finished their meal, Sarah could sense a change in David, the gears in his mind turning. She watched as he began drafting a plan on a napkin, inspired by her idea. Let us call it gather grow, he proposed, scribbling down details. A positive spin, a celebration of community rather than confrontation. Perfect. She replied, excitement bubbling up. We can create a space for everyone to feel heard. As they discussed logistics, Sarah's heart raced with anticipation. Could this really be the turning point for their efforts? Just then, the bell above the diner door jangled again, and a familiar face stepped in. It was Mrs. Thompson, her eyes scanning the room before settling on them. Sarah couldn't help but notice the tension that shot through David's shoulders. Speak of the devil, he muttered, a frown forming on his face. Don't let her intimidate you, Sarah encouraged, placing her hand on his arm. Remember, we have the community behind us. As Mrs. Thompson approached their booth, a practiced smile plastered on her face, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that an undercurrent of something darker was at play. David, Sarah, she said sweetly, but there was an edge to her tone. I've heard rumors of this town meeting. I hope it's just a chance for you both to air grievances. Beneath her light-hearted tone rested the simmering skepticism that could ignite worse fears in the community. Sarah felt a chill creep up her spine. Oh, it's much more than that, David shot back, surprising even Sarah with his boldness. It's about uniting our community. Giving voice to everyone, the people you love to scorn. Mrs. Thompson paused, her smile faltering for an instant. Sarah noticed the way her fingers tightened around her purse. I'd be very careful about pushing too hard. People don't always want to face the truth, she warned, her voice a low hiss, laced with vague threats. David leaned forward, a spark igniting between them. Then let's shine a light on it, Mrs. Thompson. Let us uncover the truth, shall we? As she departed, Sarah turned to David, her heart pounding. What did we just unleash? What if she's right? What if the truth is more hazardous than we think? David's brow furrowed, but there was defiance in his voice. Then we'll face it together. But this community deserves their chance to speak. A flicker of fear danced within Sarah, overshadowed by a surge of determination. They had set a path in motion, whether they were ready or not. As they left the diner, the weight of the confrontation loomed heavy. Sarah couldn't shake the sense that truths once buried wouldn't just emerge, they would explode. What truths would the community reveal? And were they prepared for the consequences that could follow? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the quiet streets, Sarah and David walked with purpose. The diner's warmth faded behind them, replaced by the cool evening air that nipped at their skin. The day's anxiety transformed into a shared resolve, and each step felt heavier, yet more purposeful. What if we hold the meeting next Thursday? David suggested, breaking the silence. The hint of strategy filled his voice, pulling her attention away from her swirling thoughts. A week gives us enough time to prepare. We can get the word out, build some excitement. I can talk to the school board about using the gym. Yeah, and I can make flyers. We should get it everywhere: post office, grocery store, online. People need to know this is for them, Sarah replied, her voice stronger now. A smile crept onto David's face. You're right. They want to feel involved. But in the back of her mind, doubt still loomed, echoing Mrs. Thompson's warning. What if their efforts only fueled the fire of dissent? Sarah? David's voice pulled her from the darkened thoughts. What do you think we'll reveal? She hesitated, glancing up at him. I think there's a lot of hurt in this community. People feel unheard. But maybe that's where the healing starts, right? David nodded, but she could see the unease in his eyes. Yeah, but healing means facing stuff, and what if it brings up more conflict instead? Nervously, she brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. We can't control how others react, David. But we can create a space where people see they're not alone. He paused, absorbing her words. You really think that can happen? I have to believe it, Sarah responded, feeling a rush of passion surge through her. They need to know it's okay to talk about their struggles. As they reached Sarah's car, she noticed the flickering lights of the diner in the rearview mirror, a comforting beacon slowly fading away. "Let South meet at my place tomorrow," she suggested. "We can brainstorm together. Maybe even do a dry run so we can be ready for anything Thompson throws at us." "Deal," David agreed, the worry in his eyes slightly easing. But as Sarah drove home, unease settled back in her chest. They were stepping onto a battlefield. The stakes felt dangerously high. If Mrs. Thompson held sway over the townsfolk, the meeting could easily backfire. Had they miscalculated? Were they prepared for the consequences of reopening old wounds? That night, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering about the people they hadn't yet met, the ones whose voices could resonate beyond their own fears. Each face she imagined came with stories laden with joy but also pain. She thought of the janitor who greeted her every morning at school, the quiet librarian who always knew just what book to recommend, and the teenage girl who volunteered at the animal shelter, her bright smile hiding hardships that ran deep. What stories would rise to the surface? What truths would illuminate? Just as she drifted off, a sudden thought struck her. It was both exciting and terrifying. What if they revealed something that could change everything? Something that shook their very foundations. The following day dawned bright and full of promise, yet her heart raced with anticipation. Sarah was determined not to let fear hold them back. Because deep down, she sensed that this gathering could spell the difference between despair and renewal. As she prepared for the meeting, one question lingered: would the community have the courage to step into the light? And when the truth emerged, how would they respond? The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting warm stripes across Sarah's kitchen table as she spread out her materials. The organizing supplies felt both daunting and invigorating. Flyers were strewn about in various colors, each one a beacon of change, yet their blank faces stared back at her, eager for words to bring them to life. She pushed aside her nerves, setting her sights on the task ahead. David would arrive soon, and together they would shape their vision into something tangible. Writing was a steep climb, and it took every ounce of strength to keep her focus sharp. Voices of skeptics echoed in her mind, warning of failure, of backlash from their community, but the thought of silence, of families feeling isolated and unheard, was far louder. A loud knock broke her concentration. Sarah opened the door, her heart racing as she welcomed David inside. "Hey, you ready for this?" he asked, noticing the buzz in the air. His eyes were bright, betraying traces of his earlier anxiety. "Ready as I'll ever be." She forced a smile, but it faltered just a bit. "We need to craft something that truly speaks to them." David nodded, his expression turning serious. "Let us start with the message. What do we want people to feel when they read it?" Sarah bit her lip, the gravity of the moment sinking in. "Like they belong. Like they aren't alone, you know. We want to show them that their stories matter." The two of them sat together, papers and colored pens strewn across the table like pieces of a puzzle waiting to be connected. They crafted phrases that rang with warmth and truth, words that reached out to those buried beneath layers of hurt and resentment. Each idea contributed to a growing canvas of community healing. Hours flew by, filled with brainstorming and laughter, a welcome antidote to their earlier fears. But as they began finalizing the details of the flyer, a sudden thought drifted back into Sarah's mind. What if someone confronts us about Mrs. Thompson? Maybe we're overstepping. David leaned back in his chair, considering the concern. Well, maybe we address it head-on. Honesty tends to create the best conversations. If they're scared to speak, we need to create a safe space. His idea sparked a fire in Sarah. Yes. If we frame it as a discussion about the way forward rather than tearing things down, we can ease them in. But what if they push back? What if we're not enough? He reached across the table, taking her hand firmly. You know, Sarah, everyone has fears. But that doesn't mean we can't lead by being vulnerable ourselves. She looked into his eyes and felt a flicker of hope. What if it could change everything? If just one person feels empowered to share? That's the point, David replied, excitement bubbling in his voice. We just need to start somewhere. With that, they finalized the flyer, adding a tagline, "Let us find our voices together." The words leaped off the page, imbued with a sense of urgency and optimism that felt electric in the air. As they leaned back, reflecting on their work, a soft knock interrupted the moment. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Could it be someone they knew? Was the community starting to turn toward them already? Who is it? She called out, unable to suppress the surge of curiosity and hope. It's me, Emma. Came the cheerful voice from outside. David exchanged a glance with Sarah, both of them caught in a mix of excitement and apprehension. What would Emma bring? Would she support their endeavor, or would she voice the concerns they feared? As the door swung open and Emma stepped inside, they both held their breath, ready to embrace whatever revelation awaited them. What would Emma reveal that could potentially alter the course of their plans? Emma stepped into the kitchen, her hair a tousled halo catching the sunlight, and her smile as bright as the day. Hey, you two. What's the energy in here? She leaned against the doorframe, a curious glint in her eye. Sarah exchanged a nervous glance with David, unsure how to frame their excitement amidst the weight of their project. We've been working on something important, Sarah began, her voice shaky but determined. It's a flyer, something to invite the community to share their stories, David finished, enthusiasm seeping into his tone. We want to create a space for voices that feel drowned out. Emma's eyes widened, her brows arching with genuine interest. That sounds amazing. But what's the catch? There's no catch. Sarah shook her head. But we're uncertain about how it will all go. What if people don't want to engage? What if they push back? Emma tilted her head, processing their worries. Why would they push back? Isn't that what people crave, an opportunity to be heard? It should be. David's voice lowered slightly as he added, but there's a lot of fear in this community. People are scared to stand out or to share their truths. Especially after what happened with Mrs. Thompson. The energy shifted as Emma's expression grew contemplative. I'm not surprised. Everyone loved her. She was the kind of person who put herself out there. But I think that's exactly why they need to remember her, why they need this space. It can be a tribute to her. Sarah felt a weight lift, a spark of recognition connecting them all. You're right. It's not just about the fear we're holding onto, it's about the love for someone who had the courage to step forward. Emma took a step closer, her excitement palpable. I've been thinking about stories. My dad used to say that the best stories came from true experiences, from the heart. People don't just need a flyer, they need a reminder that their lives matter. It's okay to be vulnerable. David nodded, leaning in. Why don't we do something special? We could host a gathering, not just to distribute the flyers, but to talk about it in person. Make it a community event. Let people connect over shared experiences. Could we really? Sarah was stunned by the suddenness of the idea. An event where everyone can voice their stories, share feelings? But where would we even hold it? Emma's face lit up as she pressed her hands together, eager. The park. It's central, and there's always a crowd there. We could invite local musicians, have an open mic, and let people share their stories, their art. But it'll require more than just the three of us, David interjected, the spark in his eyes filled with caution. We'll need to rally support and get some space in the park. It'll be a big commitment. Then we'll tackle it one step at a time, Sarah declared, her heart racing. She felt a wave of determination wash over her. The thought of rallying the community, of pulling people together, stirred something deep within her. If we want things to change, we have to show up and do the work. Exactly. Emma clapped her hands, let us brainstorm what we need to do. We'll draw up plans, spread the word, and create a space for real connection. We can make this bigger than just a flyer. We can lead a movement." As the trio began brainstorming, a sense of unity grew among them. They were ready to reclaim the narrative and shift the dynamics of their community. Suddenly, Sarah's phone buzzed on the table, breaking the momentum. She glanced at the screen and felt her heart skip. It was a text from someone she never expected to hear from. The message was simple but loaded: "We need to talk. It's about Mrs. Thompson." "What is it?" David asked, sensing the shift in her demeanor. Sarah took a deep breath, her pulse quickening. She had a feeling this could change everything. "I don't know, but it sounds important." With trepidation, she read the message aloud, and suddenly, the looming challenge of their mission felt both closer and more precarious than ever. What secrets lay hidden in the shadows, waiting to be unveiled? As daylight broke over the town once more, the atmosphere felt charged with purpose. The community meeting titled Gather Grow was fast approaching, and anticipation hung in the air like shimmering rays of sunlight. Sarah stood in front of her bathroom mirror, steadying her breath, her reflection calling her forth with a fierce sparkle in her eyes. "Today's the day," she whispered to herself, resolving to face whatever storms awaited. An hour later, Sarah pulled into the park, her heart racing. She could see the picnic tables lined up, streamers fluttering in the gentle wind. David arrived moments later, carrying a large box of colorful flyers, the culmination of their relentless efforts shining through his excited grin. "Are you ready?" he asked, his eyes alight with fervor. "More than ever," Sarah replied, her heart pacing in tune with her excitement. As they set up, familiar faces of neighbors and friends began to trickle in, each one greeted with genuine warmth. The palpable energy that filled the space, hushed voices blending into hopeful laughter, invited them to lean into the moment. With every new arrival, Sarah's spirit soared, pushing aside the worries that had haunted her nights. Then, with voices bubbling over, the crowd grew, becoming a sea of diverse stories waiting to be told. David positioned himself at the center. With a confident breath, he called everyone to attention. "Thank you all for being here today. This gathering is about you, your hopes, your dreams, and your struggles. We want to hear your stories and remind everyone that they matter." A gentle buzz of agreement swept through the crowd. Sarah watched as faces brightened with excitement and curiosity. She took a deep breath, her heart swelling with each passing moment. As David invited those interested to share, hands began to rise, hesitant but hopeful. It didn't take long before an elderly man, Mr. Watson, stepped forward, his voice trembling but loud enough for all to hear. That first shared story felt like someone striking a match against darkness, igniting a fire of connection that would spread through their hearts. He spoke of loss, grief, and resilience, the lifeblood of community, his story resonating deep within each listener. One by one, more stories flowed, their vulnerabilities intertwining, creating an unbreakable bond. Laughter and tears mingled in the air as fear battled hope, and Sarah began to understand the truth that bubbled to the surface. They weren't just confronting their fears, they were standing together, unraveling the chains that had bound them. As the sky kissed the horizon with vibrant colors, Emma shared her story, filled with personal struggles and overcoming societal pressure. The strength radiating from her made Sarah's heart swell with pride. Each storyteller that followed added another log to the fire, lighting the path to healing. Then, a shadow fell over the gathering. Mrs. Thompson emerged from the tree lean, her presence heavy with skepticism and responsibility. Sarah's pulse quickened, worried that the progress might be obstructed. "Is this a circus now?" Mrs. Thompson called out, her voice slicing through the warmth like a cold wind. "What are you trying to achieve here?" The crowd fell silent, the air thick with tension. David stepped forward, unwavering. "We are here to create dialogue and find solutions, Mrs. Thompson. This community has voices that deserve to be heard." A murmur of agreement echoed, and Sarah felt the collective heartbeat of determination. Mrs. Thompson's eyes narrowed, momentarily thrown off the scent of confrontation. You really believe this will change anything? The crowd erupted with affirmations, voices rising above the dread. Yes. They shouted. We are not afraid. But Sarah knew the struggle wasn't over. What lay ahead loomed larger than any one person. But as she looked around, she felt fearless. She stepped forward, embracing the challenge. We ask you to listen, to join us rather than fight us, she declared. Together, we can transform hurt into hope. In that moment of honesty, the true change began to unfurl. Mrs. Thompson softened slightly, her defenses wavering under the collective plea. Sarah watched as realization flickered briefly across her face. You all deserve belonging, she said quietly, as if the words were foreign yet true. The crowd began to clap, cheers igniting like sparks flying into the night sky. The storm within Sarah's heart calmed, as the weight of fears and doubts began to dissipate like morning mist. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the park resonated with laughter, tears, and binding connections. It was a moment of triumph, a testament to their journey and a promise of a brighter future. The next chapters of their lives lay ahead, with the soothing warmth of unity guiding the way. They were ready to face not just the darkness of the past, but the dazzling light of tomorrow, and as they reveled in the warmth of newfound understanding, a call rang out, a reminder to never shy away from vulnerability or the strength found in sharing their stories. This is the moment to seize the narrative, to step into the light. Now is the time to celebrate change. Stand with Sarah, David, and the community in this powerful transformation. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive journey. Leave a like to fuel this message of hope. Tell us in the comments how the story inspired you and share this video immediately with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to spread the light.